Most people think that simplicity is all about minimalism. It's about having very few things so that your life isn't cluttered with stuff. That is part of what simplicity really means, but it is by no means the only definition of simplicity. And in fact, minimalism by itself is not going to lead you to a simpler life. There are instead 4 things that you need to have in place if you are craving a simpler life and really wanting to live a life full of meaning and purpose and simplicity. So today in this video, I'm going to walk you through each of those things and really underscore why minimalism by itself is not going to get you the results you want. For those who are new, I'm Amber with Solutions for Simplicity, and it is my mission to share everything I have learned, both through my own personal experience and through years of academic research, on ways that we can live a simpler, more purposeful, and joyful life. A few years ago, my life was a mess. And in fact, there are often days where it still feels far too crazy. But overall, I have learned and implemented so many actionable strategies that I am passionate about sharing with you so that you can find that peaceful, more joyful sense of living that I know everybody is craving. Now today, again, I want to talk about why minimalism is not enough to live a simpler life, and why there are instead 4 different things, 4 pillars of simplicity, if you will, that we all need to have in place in order to truly live a simpler, better life. Let's first start out with the obvious. We all have heard that minimalism is the equivalent of simplicity. Those 2 terms are really used synonymously. When we hear the word simple, we think of perhaps a very empty room with few things in it, very few decorations, certainly no clutter, not a lot of material goods. We think about trying to go through our things and get rid of all of the stuff we're not using. We think about really trying to cut back on ways that we fill our lives with stuff. That is a very important part of living a simpler life. I don't deny that. But what I found when I was really struggling a few years ago and craving a simpler life was that getting rid of stuff takes a lot of time. It's not something that happens overnight. When we have accumulated so many things over the course of our lives, we can't just snap our fingers and suddenly live in this clean, blank slate environment. So while it is good to be cutting back and going through things and figuring out what we want to keep or what we want to give away, there's no easy overnight answer when you're seeking simplicity through minimalism. Minimalism leads us on this journey that is very fruitful and very important, but it is not an immediate result. It's not by itself simplicity. And furthermore, even getting rid of our stuff isn't going to have the long-lasting results that we want if we don't also have the other 3 pillars that I'm going to talk about in place. So again, to clarify, minimalism is important, and getting rid of our stuff, in essence, having less, is the first pillar of simplicity. We certainly don't want to have more things in our lives than we are using and than we need. Getting rid of things is really important. But again, let's then talk about the 3 remaining pillars of simplicity that will truly help you achieve an overarching life of simplicity. The second pillar of simplicity is about buying less. It's great to clear our lives of clutter, but if we continue to engage in the same spending and accumulation habits that we did before, we're ultimately going to end up back in that same place of excess. It is so important that we really take a hard look at our life and look at our relationship with money. Think about what we believe money stands for. I and many others really argue that money stands for time. Money represents the life energy that we put into working in order to earn a certain wage. And if we're constantly in debt, if we owe money to pay for things that we bought, then our life is in debt to someone or something else. And we are therefore not free to live our life the way that we want to see fit, at least not until those debts are paid off. that pressure, that weight of the debt that we owe really adds to our stress and frustration and anxiety, and it just keeps us on the hamster wheel of living a crazy life. So a true, simple life is one, I believe, in which we are not in debt, one in which we have hopefully achieved some semblance of financial freedom, or at least, and this is the really important point, that we are not living outside of our means. We are not spending more than we earn, and we are not looking to things to make us happy. Simplicity is really about changing how we view material goods and recognizing that true happiness, true fulfillment don't come through things you can buy. Moving on, the third crucial pillar of simplicity is to do less. If our lives are stacked to the brim with commitments and tasks and expectations that are either placed upon us by others or that we put upon ourselves, our minds are going to go crazy. Please raise your hand and let me know in the comments if you've been in this place of overwhelm and exhaustion, feeling like everything you're doing is to someone else's benefit and you have so much to do and not enough time to do it. I think that all of us have been there, and it's really easy to fall into that trap. But it's so important that if we are seeking a life of simplicity, that we are really evaluating our priorities and we are stepping back to consider what obligations and opportunities truly fit in our lives. Simplicity to me is about coming to terms with the fact that we can't do it all, nor should we try. If we're trying to be everything to everyone, then we are not going to do anything well, and we're constantly going to feel pulled in these million different directions. It is so important to clearly identify our values, our priorities, the things that are truly important to us. And this is not about what anyone else thinks. Only you get to decide what is important, what you want to be doing with your life. But once you have established that, it's really important to take a hard look at how your time and your use of time matches up with what you say your priorities are. Please check out my time tracking videos that I made a while back to recognize that we all have the same 168 hours in a week. Therefore, time by itself can't explain why some people are more successful, more productive, more happy than others. It is instead about how well we are using the time we are given. And if our time is not spent in ways that align with our priorities, then our life is always going to feel chaotic. It's always going to be stressful, and we are always going to be chasing that sense of purpose and fulfillment that we only find when we are doing what truly matters to us. Obviously, there are things in our lives that we can't just abandon, right? We oftentimes have dependents and responsibilities that rely on us to get them done. And these are so important. But hopefully, the remaining aspects of your life, or even, those family obligations and other things, really are something that do matter to you. And you can find ways of trying to emphasize the quality time that you have, even if the quantity of time is somehow constrained or restricted by other factors. So coming back around then, the point here is that in order to live a simpler life, we have to do less. It is great and so necessary to make sure that what we are doing aligns as much as possible with what matters to us, but we also then have to get so comfortable with saying no, with very clearly and consciously choosing what we bring into our lives in terms of the things that are going to take our time and our attention and our focus and our energy from here on out. Could we do it all? Maybe. I know so many of us try, but I've really come to learn the hard way that just because we can do something does not mean we should. And so much more importantly, we need to be very clear and judicious about what we are choosing to spend our precious life energy on. Otherwise, we'll get burnt out, and again, we're never gonna feel like we are doing what matters to us. Now, of course, I saved the best for last, and this fourth pillar of simplicity is the one that I don't see people talking about. And when I was struggling and craving a simpler life, This is the piece that made the biggest difference. The fourth pillar of simplicity is caring less, particularly about the things we can't control. And now more than ever, that's a lot. The world can be so crazy and things rarely happen exactly the way we want them to, no matter how great we are at planning things out and trying to use our time in a good way. There's so much that threatens to drive us crazy and stress us out when things don't go as we expected. And so often the reason that we are overwhelmed is because we can't reconcile the distance or the discrepancy between what we thought would be, how we thought things would work out, and what reality is, what is actually happening. So many of you I know can relate to this, and even though it often makes us then want to control things that much more, and we are so prone to trying to go back and figure out how we can force things to be precisely the way we want, the true key to simplicity and to happiness and to living a more fulfilling life is to consciously let go of all of those things that we really don't have control over. This is so hard for type A perfectionists like me, and let me know in the comments if that is you too. I know how we physically feel so frustrated and uncomfortable. We have a real reaction when life is crazy and things don't go as planned. But the reality is that it is still in our power to do something about it, even if all we can do is changing the way that we perceive those events. We have the power to change our mindset and to care less about those things. I could give you so many examples, but the few that I will throw out here are ones I've mentioned before. Things like not caring so much whether the dishes are all cleared out of the sink at night before bed, or not caring that every single thing we do is at 150% of our capability. There are some things that really aren't going to matter in a few years from now, right? In 5 years, are you going to remember that there were some nights where the dishes didn't get put into the dishwasher? I would guess no. Additionally, when you are so stressed for time and you really have to prioritize, then it's important to recognize that if something can't be delegated or dropped or deferred, all things that I've mentioned in my 5 Ds to Despair formula that I will link for you in a video up above, that we still have the power to dumb it down a little bit and complete that task so that good is good enough. It doesn't all have to be perfect. We really want to reserve our most important attention and energy for the things that are of utmost importance. If we spend all our time trying to do everything perfectly and again force things to be a certain way, then we will inevitably feel like a failure because it's so hard to make that result happen on every area of our lives. Believe me, I have struggled with this for years, and I just can't tell you what a difference it has made for me to care less about the things that ultimately aren't so important in my life. Obviously, many of us think that everything is important, but the reality is that if everything mattered equally, then nothing would matter at all. If we say yes to everything, then our yeses really mean nothing. We have to be very critical and discerning about what we prioritize, what we bring into our lives, how we spend our time and energy, and we will feel so much better when we give ourselves the power to let go of things that don't meet those important criteria. Now, you know I have so much more that I could and will share on all of these things, but for today, I just really want to hit home that simplicity is so much more multifaceted, multidimensional than I think it has previously been conceived of. It is not just about getting rid of things or living a minimalist lifestyle in terms of the material goods that fill our lives. I argue that there are 4 important aspects that all contribute to living a simpler, better life. And if we don't have them in place, we're just gonna continue to struggle. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments which of these 4 areas you are struggling the most with, or the one that you think would make the most difference for you. And then don't forget to subscribe for new videos every week, all about planning, prioritizing, being more productive, managing our time, and achieving better work-life balance so that we can live that simpler, better, more joyful life that we crave. Now jump straight into these videos for other tips on those things, and I'll see you back next week. Have a great day.